Hello friends, so glad you can join me today. Today we're doing an experiment with duck feathers. We're going to talk about ducks and how they fly and how they stay dry when they're in the pond. These are things I never really thought about, but duck feathers are so cool and interesting, and I'm really glad we got a chance to grab some today and take a look at them. Okay, so to get started, you're going to need a few items from your other kits. One thing you will definitely be needing is in your insect kit, which is your Friday kit, is a little bug finder. And the lid on the bug finder is actually a magnifying glass. So you want to grab that out of your bug finder. Okay? The other thing that you're going to be needing is a paintbrush or your sponge brush that you use for your African Savannah painting. And if you have any leftover paint, you can use that. I actually have some yellow that I didn't finish using the other day. I wanted some other colors, so I put some food coloring and some water in some other containers just so I have some other colors. So if you don't have the paint from your African Savannah, just use some food coloring and water. That will work fine. We're not doing that till the end, so don't worry about that. You can set that aside. But the other things you're going to need the feathers that are in your kit. You're going to need some containers. You're going to need some oil, some water. You're going to need some soapy water, some cold water, and some hot water. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our feather and we're going to look at it really closely. And if you look really closely, you can see all the little barbs, which are the pieces coming out this way, are very close together. And that's really important for a bird, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to take our feather now and we're going to go down our feather in the opposite direction that the little barbs are growing, and I want you to see what happens to it. When you do that, they're not so close together anymore, are they? There's big gaps and openings. Now, the reason it's really important for all the little barbs to be close together is when a bird is flying, you can't have any wind going through the feather because that will stop him from flying. So it's really important that he has nice solid feather like this and no breaks in the feather like that, because that is not good for flying. All right, so that is something very important that you might not have known about feathers. The other thing you might not have known is, why is the feather so light? Well, the bird's got a lot of feathers, and if these were heavy, then it would be very hard for the bird to get off the ground because he would have all this weight on him, right? But they're really light. But even though they're light, they're really strong. They're not easily bent, right? But one of the reasons they're really light is, if you take your feather, you cut off the tip. Oh, try that again. You can see that it's hollow on the inside. So I don't know if you can see that in my video. But if you can't see it in my video, take your magnifying glass and look at it really close, and you can see all the little details about how it is hollow inside. It's not solid like a stick, so it's very lightweight, and that helps the bird to fly. All right, so now let's do our experiment to see what would happen if a bird, well, was in a polluted water and got oil on him. First, let's take a look at our feather with just plain water, all right? Actually, that one has a little oil in it. We're going to use this one. I want you to dip it in the water. Here's my feather. I like this one the best. See, this one's my favorite. This one's nice and clean. We're going to dip it in the water, and I want you to take a really close look and use your magnifying glass. I want you to notice if it gets wet, or if it rolls off, or if it beads. That's a little bumps. See what happens. Before you do that, go ahead and touch it on your hand first and see what it feels like. Is that wet or is it dry? It's dry, right? So now let's go dip it in the water. Take a look. If you can see it, it's kind of beading up and it's kind of rolling off. So I want you to take a paper towel after you dip it in the water and wipe it off and rub it on your hand again. And you will notice it is almost completely dry. Your hand doesn't feel very wet. Go ahead and try it again. This time, look at it with your magnifying glass. Okay? See if you can see what happens to the feather with the water. Alright? You can feel it. It's definitely wet. When you wipe it off, how quickly does it dry? It dries pretty quick. It's not so wet anymore. It doesn't really hold the water. And that probably helps the duck stay dry. But what would happen if the duck got oil on him? Like I said before, sometimes in the places where the duck lives, there might be boats or other things that leak oil into the water. And the oil, that's pollution. That's not good for the duck. But what would it do to the duck's feathers? So what you're going to do is you're going to take some of your oil. We're going to squeeze our pipette. You're going to get some oil in there. Let it go. Watch it go up. Did you see how I did that? I'm going to show you one more time. Whenever you're using a pipette, you squeeze it before you put it in the water. Drop it in the water, just the tip, and then let it go. And the oil, or whatever liquid you're using, will go into the pipette. Now we're going to squeeze this into our water. Okay, and remember, we did this from our first experiment with the ocean. The oil and the water don't mix. You can still see it, right? So let's take our feather and dip it in there. And I want you to notice the difference. Look at all the shiny parts on there. Can you see how shiny that is? That is the oil. If you look at it under your magnifying glass, you can see how all those little barbs look very, very wet. But let's see if we can just wipe the oil off, and then the duck will be fine, right? So again, we're going to take our paper towel, wipe it off, and go ahead and feel it now. And it feels still kind of oily. It's really hard to get off. If you look at my hand, there's definitely still oil on my hand. Alright, so now the question is, what if ducks in nature get oil on them? How can we help them get cleaned up? And this has actually happened in nature before, where there's been big oil spills and people have to help the ducks get clean. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to see the best way to clean the oil off the feathers. And so I've got my clean water, because this one has oil in it. Got my water, my hot water, and my soapy water. So this is my cold water. This is my hot water. And this is my soapy water. Okay, I put some dish detergent in there. Okay, so we're going to first clean it with the cold water. Alright, so let's see if we can, let me get a paper towel. See if you can get the oil off of your duck feather, alright? So let me just try it with the cold water and see if it comes out. It feels a little better, but I still feel like there's oil on there. What do you guys think? Do you still feel the oil? Now, let's try the hot water and see if that makes it any better. It looks like it's still got some oil on it. And you can look under your magnifying glass if you want to take a closer look at this. I can see it looks very oily right there. Alright, last I'm going to try my dish detergent, and I'm going to shake it a little bit so I can get some bubbles going. Alright. Ooh, that looks really wet. Let's see if that helps. Ooh, you know what? I just realized when I do this, try that, friends. I don't feel the oiliness anymore. You tell me how your experiment went, and if you were able to wash the oil off your feather. Ooh, sounds squeaky clean. Did you hear that? Oh, that feels much better. There is no oil on it at all now. That definitely worked. So that's good to know that we can at least help the ducks or any birds that get oil on their feathers. We can help them get cleaned up. They'll dry off, and hopefully they'll be good as new, and they can fly and take care of themselves again. Because we don't ever want to damage the birds in our environment. And ducks. We love ducks, right? I know Miss Misty does. Okay, so now that we've done our duck feather experiment, we're going to do some art with our feather. And this, we're just going to kind of see. Oh, by the way, don't forget to draw pictures of your feathers. We are going to do some painting. So in your pack, you got 2 pieces of watercolor paper. So it's a real heavy paper. We already used one when we did our Savannah sunset. Now we're going to use the second one. And I'm just going to kind of experiment with this. I'm going to get my paint. I got my yellow. And I've got my blue. It's very dark. And I got my green. These are water-based paints. And so we're going to see what happens. First, I'm going to try it by just dipping it, like pretending this is my paintbrush. And you can just kind of paint with it, which is kind of cool on my paper. So experiment. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to get my paintbrush or my sponge brush, dip it in the green, and on my paper towel, see that? I'm going to put the paint on my feather. Okay, so I'm going to color my feather. So you can actually paint the feather, not just the paper. Okay, so there's green paint on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper. This is pretty heavy paper, so it might be hard to fold in half, but go ahead and fold it in half and press it down, and let's see what happens. There's our feather print. I'm going to try that again with a different color. See what happens with the blue. Okay, I'm going to put my paper towel so it doesn't drip. You know what I think I'm going to do this time is I'm going to put my feather down. I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to go over top of it and push it down. Let's see what happens this time. Oh, I kind of like the way that looked. That's pretty neat. Now I'm going to try one more thing. This is kind of interesting. Sometimes you can actually get the ink or the watercolors to go up into what we call the shaft of the feather, the hollow part. Remember we looked earlier? Let's see if that'll work. Almost like a pipette, but let's see if we can get it to go up there. Oh, look at that. You can see that. It actually went into the end of my feather. And I'm going to use this like a pen and see if it writes. Oh my gosh. It writes just like a pen. Okay, this is kind of cool. I could do this all day. Miss Debbie's having fun. Oh wow, that's neat. Alright, so I think I might sit here and play some more and have fun with my feather. I think my favorite way of doing it though is with the paper towel. So I might do a few more of those. Alright, you have fun. Go ahead and experiment and see what kind of prints you get with your feather. Do some painting, and I hope you had fun with our feathers today. I will see you guys tomorrow when we discover insects. Bye, friends.